It's often mentioned that Buddhism is essentially Hinduism tailored for a wider audience. You see, Hinduism isn't just a religion in the way we often understand it in the West. It's a comprehensive lifestyle encompassing cooking, family life, architecture, pretty much everything. It's ingrained in the Hindu culture, making it something that doesn't just pack up and travel abroad, much like how Shinto is deeply rooted in Japanese culture. However, within Hinduism, there are core principles that can reach beyond India's borders, and Buddhism is a prime example of this. If we were to boil down Buddhism to its essence, we could start with its name, which comes from the Sanskrit root, bud, meaning to wake up. Therefore, the Buddha is someone who has achieved enlightenment, who has woken up. And what exactly does he wake up from? Essentially, a dream. But not just any dream, it's more like being snapped out of a hypnotic trance. Using the term hypnosis in a slightly old-fashioned way, it refers to being completely captivated, as if under a spell. In Sanskrit, this concept is known as Avidya. Vidya, in Sanskrit, means knowledge, and it's related to the Latin word vedere, to see, which gives us the English word vision. So, when you add a in front of vidya, it translates to not seeing, or ignorance. It's like focusing only on what's directly in front of you, while ignoring everything else. Imagine how a chicken gets fixated on a chalk line drawn in front of it and can't look away. That's a good analogy for avidya. Similarly, we were metaphorically drawn to a chalk line when we were taught to navigate life focusing solely through our narrow beam of conscious attention, ignoring the broader perspective. This led us to believe in the notion of being separate entities, what Buddhism refers to as sakayaditthi, or the belief in individual separation. A Buddha, however, has moved beyond this illusion. They have woken up from this dreamlike state of fascination and understand the reality beyond our usual perception of separateness. Explaining exactly what a Buddha comprehends is quite challenging in straightforward terms. One of the unique aspects of Buddhism is its seemingly negative tone at first glance. Let's frame it this way. Imagine forming a connection with the Buddha, or rather, one of the many Buddhas out there. The Buddha most people are familiar with as Gautama, the historical figure, but his influence has the power to awaken others, turning them into Buddhas as well. When you encounter one of these awakened individuals, brace yourself for a challenging experience. For instance, Krishnamurti, one of the modern-day Buddhas, is known for questioning everything. He'll ask you why you hold certain beliefs, why you cling to specific ideas, and challenge the validity of your convictions. He has a knack for exposing how all the beliefs we hold onto might not be as solid as we think. This can lead to a sort of existential dizziness, where what felt like solid ground under your feet suddenly seems as unstable as water, or even as insubstantial as air, and perhaps most disconcertingly, like you're floating in the emptiness of space. When it comes to religion, some people say they need it as something to cling to. But that's not really the best way to approach religion. Using religion as a crutch is actually a sign of lacking true faith. True faith is about letting go, not holding on tight. Think of it like a cat falling from a tree. The cat doesn't stiffen up but relaxes, and because of that, it lands softly and avoids injury. It trusts, or has faith, in the process. On the other hand, if the cat panicked and tensed up, it would likely end up getting hurt. That's similar to how some people treat religion, as something solid to grab onto for safety. But that's missing the point. Buddhism, or the Dharma as it's called, isn't about giving you more things to cling to. It's quite the opposite. The essence of Buddhism is more about stripping away, challenging you to let go of all your preconceived notions, beliefs, and ideas about what life is supposed to be. It's a process designed to leave you free from attachments, open and unburdened. Unlike many other spiritual paths, Buddhism doesn't insist on a set of doctrines that you must believe in. It's all about letting go and finding freedom in that release. No matter your background, whether you align with Roman Catholicism or identify as a logical positivist, it seems like there's always something to hold onto, right? Buddhism takes a different approach by essentially removing the foundation from underneath you. It's not just about disbelieving in certain things. It goes a step further to question the very act of belief itself. Imagine, instead of retreating into a safe space, Buddhism encourages you to embrace vast openness and then, in a way, dissolve that space around you. This process can be quite intense because it often starts on what feels like an intellectual level. You might find yourself in a conversation where, as soon as someone presents their life's guiding principle, you're encouraged to question it, to show its flaws and see that it's not as solid as they thought. Through these discussions, you start to uncover the core beliefs that everyone operates on, knowingly or not. Everyone has their own set of philosophies, their own metaphysics, even if they haven't actively explored them. The Buddhist method involves bringing these beliefs to light and then methodically deconstructing them. It's a profound way of challenging and refining our understanding of life and our place in it. Suddenly, what started as a stimulating intellectual conversation takes a dramatic turn, feeling almost like an emotional ambush. People begin to feel really unsettled, showing signs of severe anxiety. In their search for some solid ground, they turn to the teacher, asking, for heaven's sake, what do you actually believe in? If you're not suggesting any path, then how do you manage to live? What's your secret? This question highlights a significant shift. It's like we've moved from walking on solid ground to trying to navigate in water. This analogy is particularly relevant today, considering how modern science has shaken the foundations of Western culture, similar to the challenges faced within Christianity. Songs that once offered solace with their messages of a firm foundation, like Rock of Ages or A Mighty Fortress Is Our God, seem less convincing. The stable ground they promised feels like it's vanished, leaving us to either swim or sink in a universe where everything is relative, and there's nothing solid to grab onto. Learning to swim in this context means learning to relax and let go. Rather than desperately trying to hold on to something. This is the essence of Buddhism. It teaches the art of letting go, the practice of non-attachment. Practicing non-attachment isn't about losing your zest for life, like your excitement for a good meal. It's more about letting go of that urge to cling tightly to things. Think of it as making something less sticky, like when a wheel's axle is too tight and it doesn't turn smoothly. You want to loosen it, but not so much that it becomes wobbly. It's similar to when people are told to relax and they go completely limp. That's not really relaxing. True relaxation involves maintaining some level of engagement, finding a balance. This concept captures the essence of Buddhism. It's about navigating life with a balanced approach. To paint a more vivid picture, imagine this. From the moment you're born, it's as though you've been nudged off a cliff. You're falling, and there's no stopping it. Sure, there are rocks and trees falling alongside you, and you could try holding onto one of these rocks for a sense of security, but in truth, it's not going to make your fall any safer. Everything is in flux, everything is disintegrating. But once you come to terms with this constant state of change and accept it fully, there's nothing left to fear. This acceptance is at the heart of finding peace within the chaos. When you reach a point where fear no longer holds sway over you, when you've let go of everything, it's interesting to note how some people in religious contexts cling to their suffering as a badge of righteousness. They almost cherish their afflictions, believing that enduring pain is a testament to their faith, fearing that without these trials, they risk eternal damnation. It's a common belief that suffering validates one's spiritual standing, but this, too, is a misconception. Suffering doesn't offer the assurance some think it does. Even the notion of seeking an escape through extreme measures like suicide doesn't provide certainty within the Buddhist perspective. In Buddhism, the understanding is that there's no ultimate security to be found anywhere. Everything is constantly changing, and the practice is to simply flow with this perpetual motion. The challenge, then, becomes how to share this insight with others, especially for those interested in embracing this viewpoint. It's important to recognize that these ideas aren't forced upon anyone. Conversion isn't the goal, particularly because holding onto these beliefs tightly contradicts the essence of letting go. Thus, the dynamic between the teacher and the student in Buddhism is unique, fostering an environment where the student willingly explores these concepts. Buddhism's introduction to China around 60 AD exemplifies this gradual process of understanding and acceptance, as it didn't make a significant impact immediately, highlighting the journey of adoption and adaptation over time. It wasn't until around the year 400 that Kumar Jiva, a highly respected Sanskrit scholar, arrived and began teaching Sanskrit to Chinese scholars. Together, they embarked on the challenging task of translating Sanskrit texts into Chinese, including Buddhist scriptures. However, due to the sheer volume of Buddhist scriptures, comparable to or even exceeding the extensive content of encyclopedias like Britannica, they couldn't translate them all at once. It's worth noting that Indians are known for their verbosity. During the translation process, they encountered the difficulty of finding Chinese equivalents for Sanskrit concepts. Interestingly, they turned to Daoist philosophy to find suitable terms. As a result, Chinese attitudes began to subtly influence Indian perspectives, as the Chinese interpreted the translations through a Daoist lens, leading to some adjustments in understanding. One significant alteration involved the introduction of humor. Indian Buddhism typically lacked humor, whereas Chinese culture embraced it as a fundamental aspect of life. This infusion of humor into Buddhist teachings marked a crucial shift influenced by the interaction between Indian and Chinese thought. Comparatively, Indian Buddhism had scant traces of humor, with only occasional glimpses. Moreover, it was closely associated with celibacy, a concept that puzzled the Chinese. In Chinese civilization, where family ties hold immense importance, celibacy seemed utterly perplexing. The Chinese failed to discern any wisdom or relevance in the practice, given the central role of family in their society, which surpasses even that in Western cultures.